Man, this week has been a massive week in terms of the news and really a massive week for America. So let's talk about what happened this week. First off, here's a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today. Donald Trump was inaugurated. He's passed hundreds of executive orders, some of which are great, some of which are not so great. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Some of his cabinet members have been confirmed so far. There have been 4, and we'll talk about those. And finally, the Laken Riley Act is passed and will be the first piece of legislation that Trump will sign in his second term. So let's get started. First off, Donald Trump was inaugurated on Monday, as you all know, right? That's a massive thing. It's fantastic that we have a president in office who's not a meat puppet. It's no longer the weekend at Bernie's. Now Trump is back in office, and we have a person who's capable of thinking in complete sentences who will be guiding our country. And honestly, the man took no time off. I mean, he got in office and immediately started signing orders, even to the point where he was signing orders in the Capital One arena in front of all of his supporters. I mean, that's pretty fantastic. And hopefully it sets really a precedent for how this term is going to go for Trump. Hopefully a lot of things really do happen, like some good stuff happens. Now, I don't know how hopeful I am because so far he's been, I'd say, batting like 800 maybe. I mean, most of what he's saying is good. Most of what he's doing is good. There's some stuff that's not so great. We'll talk about that, but most of it's pretty good. And hopefully we see that throughout his presidency. Now, I'm thinking back to last term that we had with Trump where he was okay. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. He did some stuff that was really stupid, but, other presidents would have done the same. And he did some really great stuff. And hopefully we're going to see more of that. I mean, honestly, last term, the Abraham Accords was massive. The Abraham Accords, that knocked it out of the park. That was probably the best thing that Trump had done. Also, his economy, phenomenal. And the fact that that the borders were all but shut down, also phenomenal. Now, obviously, he screwed it all up with the COVID, with how he treated COVID, and kind of blew everything up. But hopefully this term we don't see any pandemics or anything big like that, and life will be good. Life will be good. So let's go through from the AP the executive orders that he signed so far. So on immigration and U.S. borders, he's designated an invasion across the southern border of the United States, a move that triggers certain executive branch powers. So Trump says his cabinet shall take the appropriate action to repel, repatriate, or remove any alien engaged in invasion. That's definitely great. Allow U.S. military service members to act as immigration and border enforcement officers as part of Trump's promised mass deportation program. Trump's order covers the Ready Reserve and National Guard, military property that can be used as detention space, ground and air transport vehicles, and other logistics services in support of civilian-controlled law enforcement operations. The Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 has historically limited the use of military personnel in domestic law enforcement actions. Trump's orders frame migrant flow as a national security threat, which he reasons justifies his military orders as commander-in-chief. A part that's not on here is that he is floating the idea of using the Insurrection Act to allow the military to actually do law enforcement actions. Right now, they cannot. Right now, they are just there for logistics. They're there to transport. They're there to bring food and whatnot to border security agents, but they're not acting in a law enforcement capacity at the moment. He's given the Department of Homeland Security 90 days to decide if the Insurrection Act it has merit here and if it should be used. And if so, then the military will take enforcement action. But until then, right now, they're just running migrants back and forth across the border, bringing food, all that good stuff. He stopped refugee arrivals and suspended the U.S. refugee admission program effective January 27, 2025, pending a 90-day review and recommendations from Homeland Security, the State Department, and others, which honestly, this is something that's really good because, there's the old saying of, you've got to clean your house first before you do anything else, right? I mean, before you take care of anyone else, you got to make sure that you're taken care of. You got to make sure that you clean your house, that you keep yourself fed, this, that, and the other, right? Which is to say that it's fantastic to help refugees. I've got nothing against refugees. They're people experiencing a hard time, and they deserve help. Same thing with people who are actually applying for amnesty, and generally want help, right? If people generally want help, I think we should help them. But for the moment, we have so many illegal migrants that have just ruined it for everyone else that we have to take care of that first before we can help anyone else. So I think it's a good thing that we're ending the amnesty program for the time being. and we're not resettling refugees. He's actually stopping them for 4 months currently. We'll see how long that lasts, if it continues forward or if it stops after those 4 months in terms of refugees. But for now, I think that's a really good move to make. He's going to redefine birthright citizenship. This has already been paused by the federal government. A court has paused the inaction of this until it's actually heard arguments. Now, this will likely make it up to the Supreme Court, where they will decide if they want to reinterpret the 14th Amendment or not. But he's redefined birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment. A Trump order asserts that a child born in the U.S. is not a citizen if the mother does not have legal immigration status or is in the country legally but only temporarily, and the father is not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident. The order forbids U.S. agencies from issuing any document recognizing such a child as a citizen or accept any state document recognizing citizenship. This order is already being challenged in a federal court. Yeah, it's already been paused. It's prioritizing the continued construction of a wall and other barriers along the U.S.-Mexico border. Build the wall, man. Direct the Attorney General and Homeland Secretary to create Homeland Security task forces in all 50 states, comprising of state and local law enforcement, charged with ending the presence of criminal cartels, foreign gangs, and transnational criminal organizations. I'm loving how strong he's going on immigration. It's really fantastic. Give the Homeland Security Secretary wide latitude to establish agreements with individual state and local law enforcement agents to the maximum extent permitted by law that empower those non-federal officers to act as immigration officers. In particular, he's empowered the DEA, the ATF, and the U.S. Marshals to act as immigration officers. The FBI already has that power. It's not used often, but they're going to use that now, along with local law enforcement. So that's a really good thing. Instead of just hiring more ICE agents, he just said, screw it. You can all have the power, which is good. He's requiring collection of DNA samples and fingerprints from immigration detainees under 2005 federal law, which, that's fine. I don't think that really makes much of a difference. He stopped the catch and release, which allows some migrants to stay in the U.S. Instead, they're just going to detain and deport anyone who's here illegally, which that's the way we should do it. The fact that they were allowing these people to run wild in the U.S. is fucking insane, man. Like, these people are wild. Like, these people are morons. Like, obviously, that they're trying to get them here illegally because actions speak louder than words. But this is just ridiculous. It's good that Trump is changing that. He's directing the Homeland Security to immediately devote resources and secure contractors to construct, operate, control, or use facilities to detain removable aliens, which is phenomenal. He's ending the parole programs, often referred to as family reunification, that allow family members of certain citizens and permanent resident migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to come to the U.S. while their visa applications are still pending. That is a very good thing because if those people are denied, they're not leaving. Require a review of all cases for all immigrants now under the U.S. under temporary protected status with the stated intent of ensuring that such designations are appropriately limited in scope and last the minimum amount of time necessary to fulfill the textual requirement of federal law, which that's great. The fact that Joe Biden allowed so many people to be under temporary protected status is fucking dumb. Revert to vetting and screening standards used during Trump's first term for any person seeking a visa or immigration benefit of any kind, and apply the standard visa vetting procedures to any refugee or stateless individual seeking admission, which is good. Repeal a Biden order requiring planning for the effects of climate change on world migration patterns, which, who gives a shit about that? That's retarded. Direct the Secretary of State and U.S. diplomats effectively to threaten sanctions against any nation seen as reluctant to accept and facilitate the returns of its citizens the U.S. deports, which that is great because we already saw a couple places, specifically like South American nations, who are saying, we're not going to accept our people back, and if you send them back, we're going to just, stop doing any business with you. We're going to kick out your military bases, and that's really, really stupid. So they should be punished for that. Because they're their citizens. It's dumb that they don't want to take them back in. Direct the State Department, Homeland Security, and others to review and recommend changes to vetting for visas and produce a report to the President within 60 days. The order calls for identifying countries for which vetting and screening information is so deficient as to warrant a partial or full suspension of admission to the U.S. for their citizens. Direct the Attorney General and others to deny federal money to so-called sanctuary cities the administration sees as interfering with federal immigration enforcement, with the caveat that the Trump administration pursues action to the maximum extent possible under the law, which is good because these people, if they want to prevent us from deporting citizens, which the American people have said they wanted, with Trump winning an actual mandate in terms of winning the popular vote, the people want immigrants gone. They want to get rid of the illegal immigrants, and these cities and states are going against the will of the people, so they should be punished with the lack of federal funds. Pause distribution of federal money to non-governmental organizations supporting or providing services either directly or indirectly to removable or illegal aliens pending reviews and audits to identify any operations that may promote or facilitate violations of our immigration laws, which is great. Designate international cartels as foreign terrorist organizations or specially designated global terrorists under existing federal law. This order triggers the Alien Enemies Act to combat cartels and their members, which is great because they are terrorists. Require within 30 days the Attorney General, Secretary of State, and others to evaluate the adequacy of programs designed to ensure the proper assimilation of lawful immigrants into the United States and recommend any additional measures that promote a unified American identity. That's great. In terms of international trade, he's broadly directed all executive agencies to tailor the policies to reduce consumer prices. Trump wants a progress report from top White House economic advisor every 30 days, which is that's hopefully will do something. We'll see. Direct the Treasury and Commerce Secretaries, U.S. Trade Representative, and others to examine causes of U.S. trade deficits, identify unfair trade practices, and make recommendations, potentially including a global supplemental tariff, which hopefully will do good things because tariffs are, to the left, a four-letter word, but they tend to do something, right? It's not necessarily common under, current economic theory, but we'll see how this goes for him. Because last time he was president, he was tariffing up the wazoo, and life was good, so we'll see if it keeps going that way. Begin review of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, Trump's first administration rewrite of NAFTA with an eye to renegotiation in 2026 or sooner. Trump said he plans 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexican goods as soon as, or as of February 1st, but has not signed such executive action so far. Begin establishment of an external revenue service to collect tariffs, duties, and other foreign trade-related revenues. Begin review of U.S. trade dealings with China to consider new or increased tariffs. As a candidate, Trump threatened Chinese tariffs as high as 60%. Hopefully he does. Because China is one of those international trade folks who doesn't play fair. So why should we play fair? Order a review of fentanyl flows in the U.S., specifically from Canada, Mexico, and China, and make recommendations, including potential tariffs and sanctions, which is good because we have a huge fentanyl crisis. Direct the Commerce and Trade Secretaries and the U.S. Representative to consolidate multiple reviews and assessments. Trip order consolidated reports by April 1st. Suspend U.S. participation in the global tax deal, an international agreement intended to set a minimum corporate tax globally to prevent multinational corporations from avoiding taxation altogether. We should tax them however we feel like. If we want to tax them less because we want their business here, we should be allowed to. No one should tell America what we should do because we are a sovereign nation and cannot be controlled by international laws. Pause the U.S. ban on TikTok for 75 days, specifically barring the Attorney General from enforcing the law Congress passed in 2024 to allow the new administration to assess national security concerns and seek a potential American buyer for the popular digital platform. Honestly, this one's pretty rough because China is just constantly getting more and more of our information, and people are getting stupider and stupider. Their attention spans are barely existent at this point. So honestly, TikTok is a net negative in my opinion and should be banned because China's banned Facebook, they've banned Instagram, they've banned Twitter. Like, why should we not ban their stuff if they're banning ours? Gotta fight fire with fire, man. Bar U.S. government officials from pushing social media companies to combat misinformation and disinformation. Trump's order states that such previous efforts infringed on the constitutionally protected speech rights of American citizens and advanced the government's preferred narrative about significant matters of public debate, which this is a very good thing. Withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement because this is phenomenal. So, who cares about the more it's going to go into it, right? Basically, the way the Paris Climate Agreement worked is we paid money to nations that were considered developed nations, including China, to help them, spur more green initiatives. But why should we pay people when they're just going to keep on polluting? China and India are the biggest polluters in the world. So why are we giving them money when they're not doing anything about it? Why are we required to pay China and India to do stuff when they're not? They're not doing anything. So screw it. Declare a national energy emergency. This is both a symbolic measure reflecting Trump's promise of energy expansion, but also specifically urges federal use of eminent domain in the Defense Production Act, measures that allow the government to commandeer private land and resources to produce goods deemed to be a national necessity, which we need to do our own oil. We need to be self-sufficient because currently we have to buy oil that is essentially just oil that's been laundered from Russia because we generally buy a lot of our oil from India and the rest we buy from Saudi Arabia. So we should be doing our own. It's wild that we're not. Compel the Army Corps of Engineers to use to the fullest extent possible its emergency permitting provisions to speed up energy projects, and urge all agencies to use similar emergency procedures that expedite or bypass permitting processes under the Endangered Species Act or other federal laws that protect wildlife. Eliminate Biden policies intended to encourage electrical vehicle development and purchases. Part of Trump's effort to limit non-fossil fuel energy sectors. That is not true. He is not trying to limit non-fossil fuel energy sectors. He's trying to make sure that people have choice. Because he's not saying you can't make EVs. He's saying that you're not mandated to buy EVs. Because Biden wanted 50% of all all vehicles bought in the U.S. to be EVs by 2030. Trump's saying do whatever, which is a better thing to do. Very laissez-faire. Require all agencies within 30 days to submit to the White House Office of Management and Budget their plans to eliminate regulations and rules deemed burdensome to domestic energy production and consumption, with particular attention to oil, natural gas, coal, hydropower, biofuels, critical mineral, and nuclear energy, which is phenomenal. Repeal multiple Biden orders and memoranda regarding climate change, including guidelines for implementing climate-related provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, an effort to assess financial risks of not combating climate change, and establishment of a President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. Because right now, with the way our economy is going, why do we care about climate change? Like, yes, I understand that the left believes it's an existential risk, an existential threat, but so is starving. And there are people who are having a lot of trouble buying food right now. So I think it's more important that we focus on our economy and focus on shoring up our own energy than worrying about climate change right now. Streamline other fossil fuel extraction in Alaska with a command to rescind, revoke, revise, amend, defer, or grant exemptions from any and all regulatory actions relevant in the state. Specifically, Trump is restoring any suspended fossil fuel leases within the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. This is big. This is important. Deny a pending U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service request to create an indigenous sacred site within the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is also great because why do we need to do that? If it didn't exist, why do we care? Restore first Trump administration rules on hunting and trapping in national preserves in Alaska. Order the Interior Department to align federal rules on hunting and fishing in Alaska with rules for state-governed lands. That's great. Roll back other Biden area limits or regulations on fossil fuel extraction on federal lands. That's awesome. Make the Outer Continental Shelf ineligible for wind energy leases. Another limitation on non-fossil fuel development. Yes, and it's going to save whales by doing it because there are currently whales that are being heavily endangered because of wind power. Because of the vibrations that they make, the whales are going insane. They're dying. So this is good. Re-engage a legal and regulatory battle with California state government over water routes from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. Trump wants to override fish and wildlife protection efforts to route more of the water to the Central Valley in Southern California, which is very important because right now they're protecting smelt instead of Californian citizens, which is absolutely boneheaded. Diversity, transgender rights, and civil rights. He's giving executive branch departments and agencies 60 days to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, including all chief diversity officer jobs, equity action plans, and environmental justice positions. He's requiring departments and agencies to give the White House Office of Management and Budget an accounting of previous DEI efforts, including names of relevant DEI contractors and DEI grant recipients, terminating a 60-year-old executive order setting anti-discrimination requirements for government agencies and contractors. A separate OMB memo effectively put all federal DEI officers on immediate leave pending their elimination. Repeal several Biden-era directives on racial and ethnic equity and LGBTQ rights. They included orders intending to ensure equitable distribution of federal money based on the 2020 census, preventing government discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation, and specifically encouraging inclusion in school settings, White House educational initiatives for Native Americans, Hispanics, and Black Americans, and an order expressly allowing transgender persons to serve in the military. Which this is good because we need to roll back this DEI garbage and make America merit-based again. Require that the U.S. government recognizes two genders only, male and female, on passports, visas, global entry cards, and all other forms and documents, and in all programs and communications, because the U.S. needs sanity, which is what this will provide. Mandate that all federal civil rights law and labor law be interpreted and enforced with the understanding that sex is not a synonym for and does not include the concept of gender identity. Dissolve the White House Gender Policy Council and repeal Department of Education guidelines on Title IX concerning transgender rights and various documents advising schools on how to support and protect LGBTQ persons, which is good because even though they say their life is in danger, we never see it ever being in danger. They are in danger themselves with their 40+%, suicide rate, but no one else is hurting them. Forbid federal money, including grants, from being used to promote gender ideology, and direct the Attorney General and Homeland Security Secretary to ensure that males are not detained in women's prisons or housed in women's detention centers. Federal workers in government structure, establishing the Department of Government Efficiency under the Executive Office of the President until July 4, 2026. This is the entity led by Elon Musk, the world's richest man, and is charged with recommending cuts in federal programs and spending, and hopefully we gut the government. That's a very good, important thing. Require each agency to establish their own Doge team of at least 4 people to work with Musk's operation. This is great if done right. The problem is, I don't know if they won't just put in people who are going to obfuscate everything and make it more difficult for Musk to do what he needs to do. So we'll see how that goes. Freeze federal hiring with exceptions, notably immigration and border enforcement posts and U.S. military jobs, plus a generic exception to maintain essential services. That's a dumb way to put that, 4 too. Okay, get a copy editor. The directive also does not apply to top presidential political employees. The action bars contracting with outside labor to circumvent the hiring freeze. Block new federal rules and regulations in all agencies where Trump's appointed agency chief is not yet on the job to approve new edicts. The White House Office of Budget and Management can override the ban in emergency situations. This is a fantastic thing because right now, if Trump doesn't have most of his appointees in, until he does, the government would have been able to do whatever the hell it wanted to do because who's going to stop him, right? This, thankfully, stops him from being just completely moronic and doing stupid things. Require all federal workers to return to full-time to in-person work, which, don't really care about that. Direct reviews across the executive branch of career senior executive service officials and effectively make it easier to fire, demote, or reassign less federal employees. Generally, the highest-ranking civil service employees whose jobs historically have been protected through administration changes. Because SCS officials wield significant government authority, they must serve at the pleasure of the president, Trump's memoranda states. Which this is great, because we saw not long ago from James O'Keefe from O'Keefe Media Group that they're already trying to, make it more difficult for Trump to work. Because these career bureaucrats who survive every administration are out here trying to subvert the will of the people because they hate Trump. So it's good that they're able to be fired because they need to be. Make it easier to fire federal workers by reinstituting an executive order from the first Trump administration, which was later repealed under Biden. The latest Trump policy adds provisions that state and federal employees and applicants are not required to personally or politically support the current president, but must faithfully implement administration policies, understanding that failure to do so is grounds for dismissal. This is phenomenal because he's being nice. He's saying, you don't have to like me. You don't have to support me, but you got to do what I tell you, which that's the exact way to do things. That's what should be done. Require a federal hiring plan within 120 days to set new standards for hiring federal workers. The order prioritizes recruitment of individuals passionate about the ideals of our American republic and preventing the hiring of individuals based on their race, sex, or religion, while also blocking those who are unwilling to defend the Constitution or to faithfully serve in the executive branch. Formally nominate cabinet and sub-cabinet officers and name many acting cabinet officers, agency chiefs, and commission chairs as Trump nominees await Senate confirmation. Healthcare is repealing the Biden directives intended to make it easier to enroll in Medicaid services, secure insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act, and lower prescription drug costs. The Trump action, however, does not actually repeal the Biden-era 35 monthly cap on insulin, which is a good thing. Medicare's $2,000 annual out-of-pocket cap on prescription drugs or Medicare's ability to negotiate drug pricing. Those policies remain enforced by federal statutes passed by Congress. For now, we'll see what happens. Repeal multiple Biden orders and directives on COVID-19. Withdraw the U.S. from the World Health Organization. This one is big. Direct the White House Office of Management and Budget to stop future transfers of U.S. money to WHO and order the Secretary of State to end negotiations on the WHO pandemic agreement. These are the same people who refuse to acknowledge Taiwan as a country. This is a big thing because these people are beholden to China, so might as well not fund them. Order the Secretary of State and OMB Director to identify credible and transparent United States and international partners to replace the U.S. relationship with WHO. Foreign policy. Cancel Biden-era sanctions on far-right Israeli groups and individuals accused of violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. Biden's order of frozen U.S. assets and barred Americans from dealing with Israelis covered by his order. This is a take-it-or-leave-it thing. I mean, it's big for Jews. It's not big for me. Direct Secretary of State Marco Rubio to issue guidance to put all State Department politics, programs, personnel, and operations in line with an American-first foreign policy which puts America and its interests first. This is massive because we should be first in our own foreign policy. Why should we care about other countries if we're not taking care of ourselves? Like I said earlier, you got to clean your house first. Redesignate Yemen's Houthis as a terrorist organization. Trump's administration designated the Houthis as global terrorists and a foreign terrorist organization in one of his last acts in office in 2021. But Biden reversed course early on at the time, citing the humanitarian threat to the sanctions, or that the sanctions posed to ordinary Yemenis. Well, if you let them exist in your country, sucks to be you. define the membership and establish operating procedures for the National Security Council. Pause all U.S. foreign development aid pending reviews of efficiencies and consistency with administration aims to be conducted within 90 days by relevant agency heads under guidelines from Rubio, the White House Office of Management and Budget. The Rubio can lift or freeze any program, or can lift or freeze for any program. My apologies. Immediately grant 6-month security clearances to certain administration officials whose background checks are pending. The White House Council determines which aides get the temporary clearance, which this is great, so Trump can actually do stuff. Repeal Biden's executive order on artificial intelligence that aimed to set guardrails on the development of AI. That one I don't love, because AI is definitely going to be a threat. Nationalism. Restore the name of Mount McKinley in Alaska. The change for North America's tallest peak recognizes William McKinley, the 25th U.S. president, whom Trump has praised for economic leadership and expanding U.S. territory through the Spanish-American War. President Barack Obama had in 2015 renamed the mountain Denali, what native tribes called it historically. Trump's order did not change the name of the surrounding Denali National Park and Reserve, which is good, because why change what's already been? I know that the natives called it Denali, but we own it, we took it, we call it McKinley. Deal with it. Require Trump's personal approval of new architectural and design standards for federal buildings so the president can ensure federal structures respect regional, traditional, and classical architectural heritage in order to uplift and beautify public spaces and ennoble the United States, which this one doesn't sound big, but it is, because we're going to end that brutalist garbage that they have had. We're going back to the beauty of the way things were built with, the Gothic architecture, the Roman architecture, just the really nice stuff. So it actually looks decent instead of just like, all this dystopian garbage. Order that U.S. flags always be flown at full staff on Inauguration Day. The immediate effect was to countermand Biden's traditional 30-day order, lowering flags as a mourning tribute to former President Jimmy Carter, who died December 29, 2024. Trump's order returned flags on federal installations to half staff on January 21 through the end of the Carter mourning period. Death penalty. These are the ones that are not good. Direct the Attorney General to determine or to explore whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's going to basically see if those 37 people pardoned by Biden should be charged in state courts, and he's going to make sure that states have the drugs to carry out lethal injections. He's going to try to limit the application of the death penalty in state and federal jurisdictions, or overturn those Supreme Court precedents, I should say. And he's also going to encourage state attorneys general and district attorneys to pursue the death penalty in all possible cases. This is bad, because the government never gets it right. There's too many that have been just found not guilty after death, right? And that is unacceptable. 4% that were killed unjustly, even though they were convicted, they were killed unjustly and exonerated after the fact. That's wrong. That's bad, and the government should not do the death penalty. I am very against the death penalty. Capitol riot, blah, blah, blah. He pardoned the January 6 people. And he's going to order the Attorney General and others to review all agencies' investigative and enforcement actions during Biden's tenure to identify what Trump describes as weaponization of the federal government against his supporters. The directive identifies the Justice Department, Federal Trade Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the intelligence community. It requires a report to the president on the findings with recommended remedial actions. Direct the Attorney General to investigate U.S. government dealings with social media platforms during Biden's tenure and make recommendations for appropriate remedial actions in response to what Trump frames as censorship efforts. Revoke the security clearance of 51 actually. Trump accuses of aiding Biden's 2020 campaign via their collective public statement about a laptop that belonged to Biden's son Hunter. The list includes former top intelligence officials James Clapper, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, along with Trump's one-time national security advisor John Bolton, which this is all good. If you're not going to support America, if you're going to lie to the American people, find a new job. And he's going to direct the Director of National Intelligence and CIA Director to submit a report within 90 days with recommendations for additional disciplinary action and how to prevent the intelligence community or anyone who works for or within it from inappropriately influencing domestic elections. That's phenomenal. So all the things that Trump's doing, I'd say probably 85% of it is great, 15% is terrible. So let's move on to the cabinet nominations. Who've been confirmed, who've not. So far, of all 22, 4 have been confirmed, which is very unfortunate. Really, the Democrats need to stop holding up stuff because it is what they're doing. Trust me. We're going to talk about it in a second here. So first off, Marco Rubio, he's confirmed. 99 senators confirmed him because he used to be a senator. John Ratcliffe was confirmed, 59. Christian Young was confirmed, 59. Actually, he might have been 54. Pete Hegseth, that's the big one, right? Pete Hegseth was confirmed yesterday. It was a 50-50 vote. J.D. Vance came in to break the tie. And the problem with it is that The Democrats knew that they would not be able to stop it. So instead, they just drug it out as long as they could that day with all their debate and all their pushing against it and everything. And it's ridiculous that they are taking so long to confirm Trump's cabinet. How is he supposed to get anything done without his cabinet? So this is bad. This is terrible. And we need to speed this up because these people are ridiculous. I mean, the fact that Democrats are going to just roadblock everything Trump does is disgusting. I mean, they're going against the will of the people because the people gave Trump the popular mandate. They said, you know, you've got the popular vote, you've got the electoral college. We want what Trump does because we want Trump back because Trump is going to hopefully help solve most of our problems and bring our country back to the way it was. No matter what the left says about the presidency not being able to, you know, do all these things, not being able to really impact inflation, this, that, and the other. The presidency has a decent amount of power and can do some stuff. So the Democrats really need to stop roadblocking the will of the people, which, you know, the masses come off. Everyone knows that they don't care about the American populace. They don't care what the Americans want. They only care about power and money. And that's what they're doing. Moving on, the last big thing is the House passing the first bill of Trump's second term, the Laken Riley Act. Now, the big thing there is it's a bill that's going to require that illegal immigrants, I should say, are detained and deported if they commit any sort of minor acts like shoplifting, theft, burglary, anything like that, if they injure a law officer, or if they do anything that causes, you know, significant bodily harm or death of any person, right? So that's phenomenal. I mean, that's a really good thing. And Trump's going to finally sign this soon, and this will be law. It'll help with Trump's deportation of illegals, and it'll help protect American people. Because how many people, like I've said before, how many American citizens need to die before this is the correct action, right? Do we need 10 Laken Rileys? Do we need 100, 1,000, a million? Like, what do they want here? Because, and the reason I say that is because 156 Democrats voted against this bill that passed. That's insane. Beforehand, it was 159 in Congress who voted against it before it moved to the Senate. And then 12 Democrat senators voted against it. So it's wild that these people are that sick and disgusting that they care more about illegal immigrants than they do about American citizens. And once again, like I said, they are going against the will of the people because the number one, or at least one of the number one, no, I believe it was the number one issue in the election was immigration. Number two was economy. It was one of the other. It could have been the economy and then immigration. But either way, those were the number one and number two issues in the election. The American people want Congress, want Trump to do something about illegal immigration because it is untenable. We cannot sustain that inflow of population to our country, especially with the fact that many of them are criminals. And those will say, no person is illegal, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing, though. They've all committed crimes by coming into our country. I don't care if they push for amnesty. I don't care if they've been trained to say amnesty. They don't want amnesty. Some of them probably do. But most of them don't. Most of them are looking for economic opportunity, be that legal or illegal, right? And it's disgusting that the Democrats are pushing so hard, so hard to get these people in our country. These people are sickening, man. And they are going against the will of the people. The fact that they will be reelected is the worst part because the people in these blue states, like Pelosi said before, would elect a glass of water if it had a D on it. And that's fucking retarded. That's ridiculous, man. These people need to be voted out. These people need to be primaried. I don't care if you vote Democrat, that's fine. Primary these individuals who are going against the will of the people. Like, it's ridiculous that they think that illegal immigrants who are not citizens are more important than American citizens. Either way, guys, that's what we've got for the weekend wrap up. Next segment will be coming up on Monday. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and we'll see you all then.